We need a solution.
Abandoned buildings.
A large economic problem.
Years ago, this neighborhood was extremely blighted. Over 50% of the properties were abandoned buildings or abandoned lots, and we had a very challenging drug and crime problem, and also health issues that came from all of the blighted houses. Well, we've been working with Build and 5 churches in the community to try to make some changes, and in 2002, we had a significant tragedy when the Dawson family house was firebombed by a purported drug dealer. Angela Dawson was protecting her corner, did not want drug sales going on, didn't want to influence her children or the dangers associated with it. And so what we decided to do was that we were going to take on trying to rebuild our community.
This particular area went through a 20-year visioning process. In 1998, what this community would look like in 2018, and one of the things they wanted was a community center built in West Baltimore to focus on particular services. So that's where we are, this community center that was built in 1998. I think the most important value that Bon Secours Community Works offers for this neighborhood is hope, and another word that we use at Bon Secours is liberation. We really focus on providing programs to help people reach their potential, no matter what their barriers are. We really need to focus on the reentry population, and we really need to focus on youth development. But we can't do it alone.
We believe that East and West Side, where the neighborhoods are most challenged, where unemployment rates can be well above 20%, where poverty rates are very, very high, that those neighborhoods in particular needed a concentrated effort to create jobs for people who were returning from incarceration, people who had minimal skills or had minimal access to opportunity to acquire those skills. So we thought if we could create this enterprise and make it an easy, low barrier to entry to get in, that people could amass the skills once they were in, and they'd be marketable on the backside of their employment with us. We've seen individuals now over the course of our 6th year of existence who have traveled that path.
Before we began our transformation process of this campus, these buildings which we are working on, the area was a water pumping station for the city of Baltimore. We took ownership of the buildings in 2016. The #1 need in Broadway East and in Baltimore City that the Baltimore Food Hub aims to address is jobs. The people of Baltimore City need more opportunities for work. Right now, the demographic of the area that surrounds me is that there's an unemployment rate that's in excess of 25%. 60% of the people that live in our catchment area actually don't own a car, and 48% of the people are below the federal poverty line, and not just at the federal poverty line, but actually deeply below it. The average commuting time to work of a resident in this neighborhood is 45 minutes, and yet I'm 1.5 blocks away from the School of Public Health for Johns Hopkins, and also probably about 12 blocks away from the medical school. This entire campus is a food campus, and the overall plan is basically about bringing catering businesses together. It's about bringing food halls together, breweries. It's putting them all on one campus so that they can feed off of one another's synergies.
Bon Secours Apartments is just one part of how we're trying to create an environment where folks are able to live their lives in the way that they like to live their lives. In other words, they're raising their families, they're going to work, they're pursuing their careers, and we're just trying to provide the opportunity to do that in a safe environment that's affordable.
Rebuild Metro is a nonprofit community organization that was founded by a partnership between the Reinvestment Fund and Build, Baltimoreans United Leadership Development, to create economic growth and opportunity in East Baltimore. So to do that, we've literally rehabbed hundreds of abandoned properties for both home ownership and rental. We've helped build parks and hoop gardens and neighborhood lots. We've established a coffee house at the corner of Preston and Broadway. The concept that we've been working on as part of the Build from Strength is really the recognition that if we work by ourselves to focus on this area, and that's all we do, that is insufficient. Really what you want to do is create a much larger sense of community, a much larger sense of the investment area, so that our money is just a piece of a much larger puzzle, a much larger flow of capital into the place. And when that happens, the capital pathways are repaired, and the next thing you know, you see lots of different investment that is feeding off of one another, and a much more virtuous cycle of redevelopment and reinvestment happens.
So good afternoon. My name is Teresa Singleton, and I am the Senior Vice President of the Community Development and Regional Outreach Department for the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. It is my distinct honor to kick off this year's Reinventing Our Communities Conference, which is being held for the first time outside of the city of Philadelphia and here in the beautiful city of Baltimore. Today marks a new chapter in the history of this dynamic gathering, and not simply because we chose to move it down I-95. This conference came together through the close collaboration of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, Johns Hopkins University's 21st Century Cities Initiative, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. The video we just watched is a great reminder of why we decided to move this year's conference to the Charm City. Those of you who live or work here, and those of you who are lucky enough to have gone on a community tour this morning, know that Baltimore is a city that is actively confronting its challenges, working to raise up issues of equity, and having honest and sometimes difficult conversations about who is being left out of the American dream. These are conversations that need to be had in many communities across the country. And I believe it's probably what brought most of you to this conference today. The lack of economic mobility and equitable opportunity continues to hinder economic growth and economic mobility and equitable opportunity across many pockets of America. Poverty remains a stubborn reality for many of our neighbors. In small-town rural America, in cities, neighborhoods, and increasingly in our suburbs. In order to strengthen our economy in ways that enable greater economic mobility and prosperity, we must invest in opportunity. And this is the theme of this year's Reinventing Conference. With this theme, investing in opportunity, we are bringing focus on the ways in which policy and programs need to build, invest, and mobilize 4 types of capital: financial, human, physical, and social. During this conference, you will learn more about effective models and promising ideas that seek to build on those 4 pillars of capital. You'll hear about programs that help people build wealth and decrease crushing debt, address skills mismatches and invest in workforce development, transform housing and civic infrastructure, and empower citizens to come together to solve their community's problems. We will also hear from people, including today's keynote speaker, Wes Moore, about the personal impact that these issues have had on their lives. Through these perspectives on opportunity, we can better understand why our work to build equity matters and how policy can translate into opportunity for more people. In addition to the rich content presented at our sessions, both plenary and concurrent, we are pleased to share our special conference publication, which you should have found at your tables today. This publication highlights reflections from thought leaders, including Ben Hecht, Michael McAfee, Laura Blatchford, and Ben Siegel, on these critical topics. And they challenge us to think about the challenging conversations that we all need to have across the community development industry in order to move the needle on some of these issues. This conference is a reflection of the insights, expertise, and elbow grease of our colleagues at the Richmond Fed and Johns Hopkins. And I want to thank them for their hard work to help create a terrific agenda with special recognition of Ben Siegel at the 21st Century Cities Initiative. In addition to our co-hosts, I'd also like to thank the many co-sponsors who contributed to this conference, including the Federal Reserve Banks of Atlanta, Cleveland, Chicago, Minneapolis, and New York, as well as our funding partners who enabled so many nonprofit partners to join us here today, the Annie E. Casey Foundation, Enterprise Community Partners, Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, Meyerhoff Family Charitable Fund, and NeighborWorks America. I also want to ask you all to join me in thanking my colleagues at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia and Richmond with a special recognition of the efforts by Noelle St. Clair, Sidney Diavla, and Peter Dolkart. If you could join me in thanking them. We know that the conference will generate conversations, ideas, and hopefully collaborations that will be just as fruitful as the ones that brought us here today. And we're going to ask that you all engage with us while you're here. So we're going to ask that you please download the conference app at Crowd Compass, and if you need some assistance with that, there are folks who will be willing to help you. This is a way for us to keep in touch with you, share updates and different information about the sessions and some of the resources that are available. And we also ask that you join the conversation on Twitter by using the hashtag Reinventing18. And a number of you have already joined, and you'll see some of the Twitter feed going throughout the conference, and so we encourage you to participate in that conversation. Shortly, you will hear from Ron Daniels, the president of Johns Hopkins University. But please, I would ask you to join me in providing a warm welcome to Catherine Pugh, the 50th mayor of the beautiful city of Baltimore. Mayor Pugh is also a Philadelphia native, so we are making connections here already. And so I'm going to ask you to please join this dynamic mayor from the wonderful city of Baltimore.
We're doing some Philadelphia chit-chat. So first, let me just say welcome to everyone. I see one of my fellow mayors here. How you doing? But I also wanted to give a shout out to Ron Daniels at Johns Hopkins, because from the moment I won my primary, we have been such close partners. And I just want to thank you, because before I do that, I want to just relay a little short, quick story. When I won my primary, I had tea with Ron Daniels. And so he said to me, so what are you thinking? And this is our conversations all the time. What are you thinking and around housing? I said, Ron, you know, I have this vision of how we create these lotteries. We got so many board-up houses. I've begun to assess where we are as a city. We own 2,000 some odd board-up houses. There are about 14,000 others in the city. And I'm looking at how do we create more programs where we create a lottery where we can give folks opportunity to own those houses. I remember the days of the UDAG grants when we had dollar house programs, but what most people didn't know is that you might get a dollar house, but you had to qualify for a $100,000 loan at that time in order to be able to fix it up. And literally tears were in his eyes. He said, Catherine, you got to come over to Hopkins this weekend. We're doing exactly that. So if you all didn't get a chance to see the footprint of Hopkins over on the east side, where they invested some $35,000 per person to get people to live near where they work, and they are transforming the vision of what you see of Baltimore when you're riding in through the train station. Ron, thank you for being such a great partner. And you'll hear from Wes Moore, a friend of our city, for quite some time. And I want to thank you ahead of time because I probably won't be here while you're speaking, but I already know what you're going to say. I also want to introduce Jim Smith and Pete Hammond, who are here somewhere back there. These are individuals who've worked with me on crafting my vision in terms of how we move our city forward. And I'm so grateful for the work that we've been able to do together. and our focus not just on building affordable housing, but also housing throughout the city, because we realize that we need to make sure that we're balancing all of what we're doing, and at the same time pay very close attention to the least of us. And I'm talking about the homeless. And I tell folks, you can't really fix the problems of the homeless, whether it's mental illness, drug addiction, or coming back out of the institutions, until you provide them with housing. And so I'm really excited that just last week we announced our $20 million Housing Affordable Trust Fund. That's in Baltimore City. And what folks don't know is that I had talked to the advocates long during the period of time when I was campaigning, but I said to them that I have to separate housing and community development from the Housing Authority of Baltimore so that there could be focus on both. And as a result of that, we are one of this nation's promised neighborhoods, where we received the $30 million Promised Neighborhood Grant, which will transform that part of Baltimore. I think some of you got to see that today, which will attract some $800 million in investment to help us to continue to transform East Baltimore. So we know that when cities are cash-strapped, oftentimes they look at their assets and they say, what can we sell? And Brooke, there was a conversation, we have Brooke Lemon here, who's one of our delegates. There was a conversation about selling off the city's garages. And one who is a historian of Baltimore, I had read some time ago that we once owned our airport, and we sold that for $36 million. Can you imagine if we still owned it today? And so I said, we're not selling off any of our assets in Baltimore. And so what we decided to do was to maintain ownership, lease those garages, bond them, and we raised a $57 million investment fund. $50 million will go directly to investing in neighborhoods and communities that have been underinvested in for decades. And then to continue building up those neighborhoods and communities that have been underinvested in, we're working with community groups and helping them to establish their community development corporations so that we will seed them so that they can expand and take advantage of that opportunity. The reason we created this $50 million investment fund, and I'm saying this because I know you all understand Community Reinvestment Act and what banks can do, because this is an opportunity for you to invest as well. Because our goal is to raise $200 million a year over the next 5 years, because when we look at the number of board-up houses and neighborhoods and communities that have been underinvested in for decades, we know that that's what it's going to take. So we appreciate you all taking the opportunity to be here in Baltimore, but we can tell you that you're in the right place because transformation is taking place. We understand our challenges, whether it is reducing violence, helping the homeless, or creating opportunities, connecting social justice with economic opportunity. That is the intent of this administration. I also wanted to announce that I read an article that Ben Siegel had written some time ago about, is Baltimore going to be ready for opportunity zones? Absolutely. Not only are we ready, we're so prepared that we are bringing on someone, and I won't make that announcement, they'll make it themselves, to lead our Opportunity Zone effort. Because when I was in Washington, D.C., Ron, I had a conversation with Enterprise, who's been a great investor in Baltimore City around opportunity zones, and do you know and understand them? So what you should know is that since then, I've been a national speaker with mayors across the country about how they should be prepared. And so we submitted 44 opportunity zones in Baltimore City, and 42 have been accepted. We are 25% of the state's opportunity zones. And we just got word that Able Foundation approved our funding for the executive director of the opportunity zones that will lay out every single opportunity zone so that when investors come to Baltimore, we can tell you what your opportunities are, because we believe in P3s, we believe in partnership, and we believe in working together. We also, in my last part of my session as the majority leader of the Senate, along with Pete Hammond, we were able to bring back $1.2 billion to build 28 new schools in Baltimore City. We will build more new schools in Baltimore City than the entire state. And so we're excited because we believe that that is part of what we need to be doing in order to assure that those who live in our city, because millennials get it, we're in the top 10 cities where millennials want to live. So the two fastest growing populations, 18 to 34, 55 years of age and older, but we've got to keep those parents who are raising their children in our city. So we're building new schools, we're refurbishing new schools, and directly across from those schools, we're looking at how do we fix those neighborhoods. And just one example, we rebuilt Pimlico Middle and Elementary School. And directly across the street were all boarded houses. And here's what our housing department did. Our housing department went and laid the foundation for those houses and then lured a developer, and now we're able to offer mortgages to people who have children in those schools for $600 a month. That's working with the community, and that's how you rebuild. We have a commitment on behalf of the state of $75 million for our core program to help us tear down and rebuild some of those neighborhoods, and we'll continue to work on that. And I'll close with this. We understand what investment can do for a city, how it can transform neighborhoods and communities. And while we've had great partners in Goldman Sachs, who's investing some $60 million over in Port Covington, another $5 million in Center West, we realize that we need more investment. And we've had great partnerships with Bloomberg Philanthropies, also Johns Hopkins University, and what Johns Hopkins has done has spurred others to do as well. University of Maryland now offers $18,000 for people to live near where they work. And LifeBridge joined them with another $18,000 for people to live near where they work. In Baltimore City, offering $5,000 for people to live near where they work. We intend to grow our city, but we intend to grow it for the people who live here and the folks who will come. We believe that investment can change the trajectory of a city, and so we're excited. And so I say to all of you all, thank you for leaving my birth city and coming to the place where I've grown up, Baltimore. And I hope that you will enjoy your stay here. And I know that the collaborations and the discussions that you will have will help lead other cities to their greatness, because cities are important across this country. Building the right kind of transportation, building schools, building housing, builds people. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And Jim would not let me leave this mic without reminding you all that we really do understand CRA. We really do. And so we look forward to the partnerships. Thank you again. I got so enthralled with talking about Ron Daniels, I forgot that I'm supposed to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Johns Hopkins University, my friend, the next speaker, Ron Daniels.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pugh. As you can see and hear from the mayor's presentation, we just have a truly extraordinary leader of our city. She is irrepressible. She is incredibly engaged in all dimensions of the city's life. No one works harder for our city than she does. No one has a greater reservoir of ideas and aspirations for our cities than she does. And Mayor, we're just so lucky that you're at the helm of the city at this point in time. So thank you for being here today and for kicking off our conference. Let me welcome our distinguished guests, our colleagues and leaders from civic and community organizations, the Academy, philanthropies and industry from cities across the country. I obviously share Mayor Pugh's sentiment of appreciation that you are convening here in our hometown of Baltimore. And we're truly grateful to Teresa Singleton and our partners at the Federal Reserve Banks of Philadelphia and Richmond for their commitment, which we share to community development, and their willingness to reinvent their longstanding Reinventing Our Communities conference here in Baltimore with Johns Hopkins and 21st Century's Initiative as co-sponsor. And Ben, thank you for your leadership, not just in this conference, but for many years now at 21st Century Cities Initiative. I want to do a special shout out to Pat Harker, head of the Philly Fed. Pat and I go back several years. Some of you may know that I was born, raised, and spent the bulk of my career in Canada, but I did move about 14 years ago to the University of Pennsylvania as provost. And one of the great opportunities I had there was to work with Pat, who was a very successful leader of the Wharton School of Business. And Pat, in that capacity, your incredibly high academic standards, your ambitions for Wharton, the rigor that you brought to your leadership role was very palpable. And in truth, although the university has moments of hierarchy, president, provost, deans, and so forth, the truth is that although Pat was supposed to report to me, it was always an understanding that he was my partner, and it was a great collaboration, and we got a lot done together. And since that time, Pat's leadership obviously took him to a very successful run as president of Delaware, and now back to Philadelphia. But it's great that you're here. And I remember very distinctly, Pat, when you phoned me some time ago and said, did you think we would be game to do this conference with you? And we jumped at the opportunity. So thank you for that. Now, I would really love to be able to say that collaboration, partnership between us and the Fed has its roots in a longstanding historical partnership. But sadly, the historical record tells a very different story. In 1914, not long after the Federal Reserve System had been authorized, Baltimore and Richmond were locked in a ferocious competition to be designated as the reserve center for the 5th District. And ultimately, Richmond, as you know, won the day, despite going back through archival material, seeing a pretty robust case developed by the very unbiased Baltimore Sun that found that the success of Richmond was accomplished by a fair amount of foul play. Those wounds are still with us here in Baltimore. But I don't mention this moment in history of our cities in order to adjudicate a century-old rivalry. Rather, I think it tells us something about the importance of local and regional institutions to a place, and the value of such institutions, large and small, when they remain embedded and invested in the communities of which they are part. We are here today to work not in opposition to one another as we did in 1914, but in concert to examine the ways in which all of us who are devoted to our communities can make meaningful impact and investment in our cities. Philadelphia, Richmond, Baltimore, all cities that represent areas of great promise paired with not inconsiderable challenges. Cities that have had to face entrenched racial and economic inequities and the troubling policies that they have shaped. Cities whose complex challenges surely resonate with many in this room, wherever you hail from. But let me speak specifically to Baltimore. As president of Johns Hopkins, now entering my 10th year, I am keenly aware of Baltimore's immense resources and potential, as well as its trials. I'm equally aware of the role that Johns Hopkins has played here. Indeed, our university and medical system's history is inextricably linked from our founding to the city we've called home for 142 years. As often said, Johns Hopkins is not just in, but truly and determinedly of this city. And as one of Baltimore's anchor institutions, we have a responsibility to the city that is both instrumental and moral. Although we have not always lived up to our ideals, we remain committed to harnessing our intellectual, financial, and convening capability for the improvement, for the strengthening of the city. And this commitment is manifested in a myriad of ways through our ongoing partnerships with many stakeholders, a number of whom are in the room right now. It is evident in our longstanding partnerships with the Baltimore City Schools to create and sustain new programming, including an innovative high school to jobs pipeline program based in one of the most challenged neighborhoods in our city. That's P-Tech. It's a program that we brought from New York and with the help of IBM to the city and to the state of Maryland, and we're very proud of our role in that program. It has formed the basis of our collaborations with community, civic, and business leaders to strengthen neighborhoods, from the launch of real estate development funds for projects that would not receive funds from traditional sources, to the operation of a new public school in East Baltimore, which some of you might have seen, to the creation of a new park and housing as part of a landmark 88-acre urban renewal project in East Baltimore, one of the largest urban redevelopment projects that has been undertaken in the United States. It's driven our collaborations with the city to support violence reduction programs here, including ROCA, which is focusing on providing support to young people in order to disrupt the cycle of poverty, crime, and incarceration. And it has spurred the creation and expansion of our economic inclusion program, Be Local, a network of 27 Baltimore area institutions that in the wake of Freddie Gray felt it was really important for us to come together, set clear goals around the way in which we buy, build, and hire people within the city of Baltimore, and to use this as an opportunity to create a significant bolus of new jobs in the city. In short, we are committed to the city because we know that place matters. And it matters not just because of sentimental identification with geography or a long-standing embeddedness in cultural norms. Place matters because it determines opportunity. And the evidence here is clear and resounding. As economists Raj Chetty and Nathaniel Hendren showed in their landmark 2015 study of the 100 largest counties in the nation, Baltimore City ranks among the lowest in terms of intergenerational mobility. Each year, a child spends in Baltimore reduces that child's potential earnings. Thus, children who live in Baltimore for 20 years generate a total earnings penalty that they carry through life of roughly 14%. And place matters because it determines longevity. In Baltimore City, residents of our most affluent neighborhoods have a life expectancy almost 20 years longer than residents of our most disadvantaged communities. We're just blocks from one another, and yet we're living with these gaping differences in life expectancy. These haunting figures indicate that the story of Baltimore has long been one of deep contradiction. On the one hand, ours is a city that remains in the grip of stubbornly persistent and deeply felt challenges. A lack of economic opportunity, limited educational opportunities, and concentrated crime that rends our communities and annihilates the futures of so many children and so many communities. It's heart-wrenching. But Baltimore also is a city of extraordinary creativity, optimism, and unwavering commitment to the communities of which we are part. It's a place that fosters the growth of new businesses, including family and neighborhood businesses that find support through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program and our own Be Local Build College. It is a place of enviable assets, our proximity to the nation's capital and federal research centers, a roll call of strong anchor institutions, including academic research institutions and medical centers, great national foundations, including Casey, Weinberg, Abel, and Meyerhoff, another co-sponsor today. Thank you, Buffy. Businesses like BGE, Under Armour, M&T Bank, and T. Rowe Price, and community leaders and citizens all of whom are fiercely dedicated to this city and its possibilities. The question for us, as for so many cities whose histories are built on foundations of deep and troubling contradiction, is simply this: what does it take to ensure that we are effectively and actively investing in opportunity, not just for the few, but for all our citizens, so that we can change the trajectory of the story from one of dissonance to one of concord and of shared growth and prosperity? As our colleagues articulated so well in the essays penned in advance of this conference, to be successful takes clear-eyed analysis of the root causes of inequity, especially in the odious and indefensible racism that has far too long shaped public policy and undermined opportunity. It takes concerted and coordinated efforts by institutions to align their resources and commitments effectively to make a measurable and enduring impact. It takes both the desire and the persistence to partner effectively with individuals and institutions across the public and private sectors. It takes a willingness to play the long game, approaching the work as a long-term value investment in a place and people that matter. Of course, vision and commitment are necessary, but they are not, we know, sufficient conditions for success. And here's where efforts like this come in. At Johns Hopkins, we're deeply committed to marshaling the applied research and data-driven analysis in which so many of you are engaged, and it lies at the core of the work of the 21st Century Cities Initiative and the Johns Hopkins Center for Government Excellence. Research that matches faculty capacity with the needs of our city and community partners and will allow them to understand the impact and effectiveness of interventions, policies, and programs as they unfold. Whether we are investigating gaps in small business lending environment here in Baltimore that dampens the prospects of Baltimore's entrepreneurs, as Mary Miller did and the wonderful work she did for 21st Century Cities, or using large-scale data analysis to better understand the pattern of vacancies in this city, or finally putting to rest the age-old question of whether children's vision affects their ability to learn in the classroom, we are working to put rigorous academic research into the hands of stakeholders, from policymakers to patients, in order to shape, indeed to force, better outcomes. But when we consider, of course, the right amalgam, the perfect balance of policies, culture, change, resources, effective institutions to move a city or community forward to a better future, there is, of course, another key element, and that is effective, dedicated, unstinting, and courageous leadership across sectors and institutions. And here today, we're fortunate to have among us so many people who fit that description, including leaders like our amazing mayor, whom you heard from earlier, and who has redoubled her commitment to violence reduction, to working with partners to loosen the grip of poverty and incarceration that robs young people their future, and to partnering with all of us to create jobs and erect bridges to economic opportunity for our neighborhoods.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Daniel Davis, and I'm from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and I have the distinguished honor of introducing this next session to you. We are thrilled to have four wonderful presenters with us to share some of their story today, but before we do so, I just want to capture a little bit of what I feel like is a foundation to this conference. And I don't know about you, but I already feel like, and Teresa, I'm not going to do this, but I already feel like I could pack my bags and walk right on out the door, because my mind is just saturated with what's been laid out as this foundation of opportunity. You know, it started with the video about Baltimore. Can we get a round of applause for the folks who put that together? We heard straight from the community that opportunity involves taking on and rebuilding our communities. We heard from them that words like hope and liberation are reflections of the work that individuals are doing on the ground in Baltimore. Helping people fulfill their potential is what opportunity seems to be. We heard that opportunity is a concentrated effort, and another person on the video talked about feeding off of each other's synergy. And I love this quote that came towards the end of the video, where one individual mentioned that when it comes to opportunity, if we work by ourselves, that is efficient. But each of us are one piece of the puzzle. There seems to be this idea about collaboration that comes into pursuing opportunity. And then I feel like we just received a master class of what opportunity means from the folks who just graced this stage. We heard Ron Daniels ask and answer the question, what does it take to ensure we are investing in not just a few, but in everyone? We heard Teresa Singleton say that investing in opportunity requires honest and sometimes difficult conversations about who is left out of the American dream. And we heard Mayor Pugh say that we understand our challenges in the city of Baltimore. And she seemed to indicate that that is a prerequisite for pursuing opportunities, because she said the city's aim is to connect social justice to economic opportunity. Sometimes I think about social justice and it's this vague, abstract concept, but I love the way that academic Nancy Fraser describes it, where she says that social justice is the ability to interact as peers within society. The ability to interact as peers within society. Isn't that the kind of opportunity so many in this room are seeking to create? And then we heard Wes Moore say you cannot understand systemic breakdown without understanding systemic build-up. Which leads me to think that opportunity is about rethinking and rewriting the narratives that drive our systems and our structures, because that, in doing so, will transform the lives of the individuals who live in our communities and ultimately society as a whole. But don't take my word for it. We've brought these four folks into the room today to explain their perspectives on opportunity. Each has accepted the challenge to take just 15 slides and 5 minutes to tell their story about what opportunity means to them and the work that they're doing in their communities. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker to come to the podium, Joyce Bacon with the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was born in a system that impedes opportunity, a system of poverty, a system that right out of the birth canal, I was told you can't, or you could only do, or you would only be able to go but so far. Growing up in public housing, a community that lacked hope, living in poverty, there is a constant level of stress that controls your daily activities or non-activities. I remember feeling depressed and down as a result of my circumstances and the unwise decisions I had made. I became a single mother at the age of 18, and my first child with special needs, diagnosed with autism. I dropped out of school due to embarrassment and shame of being a single parent, and I had a son who would later be abused by our babysitter and suffer traumatic brain injury and shaken baby syndrome. There were back-to-back situations of distress and trauma, but what topped them all was experiencing domestic violence. I had gone through so much, and I felt like I was drowning in my situations. Being born into poverty, suffering the experiences as a result of, I was drowning in despair. Drowning, praying. I began praying that one day that God would help me to be able to break free, because I felt like my mind was in chains. I prayed that one day the sun would shine on my behalf, and when it did, I would not be afraid to go outside and embrace opportunity. Miraculously, I made it to shore. I began to see my life with a different perspective, in the eyes of my Creator, to know that not only did I overcome those situations, but I overcame them, and I'm still in my right mind with the ability to achieve. So I went back to school. I did all that they told me to do. They said in my community, if you obtain your high school diploma, if you obtain a technical certification or go to a secondary school to obtain a trade, then you can be successful. So I went back and obtained my high school diploma, and I obtained a certification in computer programming. I wanted to be successful. Living in my community, there are new developments going up over all the time coming from West Philadelphia. And I look across the river and I see all these beautiful buildings being built. And 10 blocks down the street that way, new developments, new buildings, new businesses, new opportunities to embrace. So I go with my tools, my diploma, and my trade that I was told if you obtain those things, you can be successful. And I began knocking on the door of opportunity. And to no avail, I was being told no, because there was an invisible barrier that separated us from the community, from the new developments and buildings that were going up. I knocked on the door for opportunity and was told no without an interview. I heard of a program in the community, an economic development program called University City District, West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. They were offering residents of the community an opportunity to connect to Children's Hospital, the #1 hospital in the nation. I said, that sounds good. So I applied. I was accepted into the program. During the course of the program, they taught me what I call power skills. Some of you call them soft skills. Skills that work on your confidence, skills that help unlock the potential that was already on the inside of me and cultivate those talents, things that I did not know was there because of the things that I had suffered. I gained confidence. Not only did I obtain the position with Children's Hospital, but I worked as a patient sitter, which was an entry-level position into that institution, and was promoted in 6 months to an inpatient clerk. That was just the beginning. Through that program, I realized that I was able to overcome growing in a dry place. And if I was able to do that and persevere and survive, it touched my heart so much that I wanted to be able to give back. I thought about the other residents that are out there seeking opportunity, that have the skills, that have the talent, that has the ability, that are knocking at the doors of these institutions and cannot get in. So what I did was I obtained my coaching certification because I wanted to be able to help. And I started my own coaching business. And I went back to that skills initiative 3 years later and was contracted to be their certified professional development coach. Who better to help the residents overcome and achieve than me? Somebody that has gone through the process, somebody that can identify with the pain, somebody that can identify the struggle. I love what I do. I'm able to meet the participants where they are, if they're here, or wherever they are. I was given a chance. The door of opportunity was open, and like myself and many other residents, I was able to charge through it. I encourage you today, the residents of the community, not just Baltimore, but Philadelphia, we are gifted, we are talented, we just need opportunities. There's an invisible barrier. I asked you, what is that and why is that? I beseech you to crack open your doors of opportunity, and I guarantee you there will be people like myself that have overcome and been resilient, that will charge through those doors and be the best human beings, be the best professionals that we can be. Crack open your doors.
Our next speaker will be Kendall Jamison from Thread.
Good afternoon. There were times in my life when I felt deeply discouraged and overwhelmed. Opportunity and the belief that I would succeed were distant thoughts. Looking back at my childhood in Northeast Baltimore, my life began to unravel in middle school. Mom was struggling to hold down 2 jobs. Food was scarce, and evictions caused us to bounce around from place to place. But things began to look up when I entered Dunbar High School in 10th grade. I joined the football team and I studied hard, but I quickly realized all of my responsibilities would be difficult to juggle. I was trying to take care of myself, and I didn't have a lot of supervision. Taking care of yourself wasn't always easy. It became obvious that I could use help in order to remain eligible to continue to play sports. 14 years ago, Sarah Hammond just showed up at Dunbar High School, and she asked 15 young men and women to join her program. She lured us with pizza. But together, we decided we would focus our time on academics, team building, and community service. Now, I know this sounds like a bit of a fairy tale, right? 15 kids signing on for all of this. But as I mentioned, I needed help with my grades, and I thought Sarah and her friends could help me. So honestly, food and tutoring were enough to get me to come to the school library each day to study before practice. My grades began to improve, and Sarah, her husband Ryan, along with my classmates, and a group of students from Hopkins all quickly became a constant source of encouragement. You can call them my Thread family. We went camping in the middle of the winter. We learned how to ice skate. And we even did community service with organizations like the Maryland Food Bank. I remember going there to help serve food on Thanksgiving. It felt good to be on the giving end rather than always receiving. Now, when I started to look at colleges, Thread was here for me in new ways. My volunteers provided guidance. They helped me with college essays, and I even received funding for my college applications. The result were numerous scholarships, including a scholarship to Morgan State University. Now, that degree, along with the growing relationships I had with two of my Thread volunteers, Julia and Kendra, were life-altering. I mean, I was amazed at the interest that these women showed in me. We watched Ravens games every Sunday. We had cookouts. And I think they cheered the loudest for me at my college graduation. I could call on them anytime, and they were always there to answer. But if I'm honest, I was really focused on myself and my needs for the first few years. I would call them when I wanted help, and I would avoid them when I didn't. I'm not sure I had the insight to truly value the relationships that we were building. I didn't really grasp the depth of opportunity that their friendships offer. Well, looking back now, I'm humbled by the unwavering persistence of my Thread volunteers. When life wasn't going great, when I got discouraged, or when I got in trouble, I could call on them and they would answer. Even though we were totally different, we were total strangers, they accepted me, they respect me, and they listened to me. And that was new for me, and I thank for them. But that type of love stretches you. We were really different, but we were connected to each other in ways that none of us had been before. Today, I work at Thread as a community growth coordinator. I'm responsible for expanding Thread's reach by engaging new students, collaborators, and volunteers. I've come full circle. And now I'm the one giving opportunities to others. And because I am a Thread alum, I'm in a unique position to engage people by sharing my personal story. I know what it's like to struggle and feel lonely, scared, and isolated. But I also know what it's like to be a part of a network of caring people who show up for one another in the good times and the bad. I have experienced the power of relationships, and I'm truly appreciative for the opportunity that those relationships have created for me and so many others. Our Thread community is now made up of thousands of people who all want the same thing. The opportunity to live in a city that isn't divided by race and class. The opportunity to live in a city where people don't look at others as haves or have-nots. The opportunity to live in a city where people look at their neighbors all as valuable individuals with something unique to offer. So imagine what opportunity would look like if that were the case. Imagine what opportunity would look like if we were all willing to be vulnerable and engage in those types of relationships. Imagine what opportunity would look like if we all felt seen, heard, and loved. Well, I don't have to imagine, because I know. We would change the world.
Our third speaker will be Zue Kwok with Calm Clarity.
Thanks, it's an honor to be here. Good afternoon. For me, opportunity means being a bridge. To join two areas that are separated by a body of water, bridges are built to carry thousands of tons and withstand earthquakes and hurricanes. Likewise, a human bridge has to be extremely strong and durable to join communities that are separated socially. I am a refugee from Vietnam who grew up in this takeout restaurant in inner city Philadelphia, where gangs often came and robbed people and fought. I took the bottom photo on September 20th after a gun battle where over 40 bullets were fired outside my home. I am also a Harvard graduate and a Wharton MBA who built a successful business career and wrote a book called Calm Clarity to share how I use neuroscience to heal trauma and serve as a bridge. I now teach this program to professionals and to inner city communities. As a first-generation college student, the culture shock that I experienced at Harvard triggered my untreated traumas to blow up into post-traumatic stress disorder. This put me in what I call Brain 1.0, or inner Godzilla mode, because I just wanted to smash things and to disappear. I then taught myself mind hacking to help my brain function better and graduated with honors. After Harvard, I lived in what I call Brain 2.0, or inner teen wolf mode, chasing happiness through career advancement and wealth. But as I achieved these things, it didn't really make me happy because my fear of missing out was so strong. So I decided to take time off to learn meditation techniques to strengthen what I call Brain 3.0, or inner sage mode, because I finally found the inner wisdom and peace I needed to be able to return to inner city Philadelphia and help more people break self-limiting patterns. Today, in this room full of policymakers, I want you all to understand that using carrots and sticks to motivate people activates Brain 2.0 and Brain 1.0. It works, but not without costs. It keeps people from developing Brain 3.0 and realizing their fullest potential. Another key insight is that emotional states are contagious. When we are in Brain 1.0, Brain 2.0, or Brain 3.0, we activate those states in others. It's only when we are in Brain 3.0 that we can make a positive impact. The ability to transmit Brain 3.0 can transform all of our relationships and our society. To develop Brain 3.0, we have to become aware of the triggers that bring us into Brain 1.0 and Brain 2.0, and intentionally activate the neural networks that in Brain 3.0 that calm the inner Godzilla and inner teen wolf. I now want to touch upon 3 things that fuel Brain 3.0. First, compassion is the ability to be kind and nurturing to ourselves and others, even in the midst of great suffering. The neural networks for compassion is one of the most important systems in Brain 3.0. It quiets the inner Godzilla and inner teen wolf and amplifies the inner sage. Next, self-efficacy is an individual's belief in their innate ability to improve their situation and achieve their goals. Strengthening this system reduces mindless reactivity in Brain 1.0 and Brain 2.0 and buffers against hopelessness and helplessness. Finally, the system for connection involves the vagus nerve, which connects the heart and brain. Stress and the fight or flight response turns off the vagus nerve and reduces blood flow to brain 3.0. Social support, however, keeps the vagus nerve and brain 3.0 online. One day, I heard a neighbor say, "I want a hand up, not a handout," and it stuck with me. It made me realize that handouts activate brain 2.0 and make recipients feel subhuman. But a hand up emphasizes our inherent worth as human beings and activates brain 3.0. We can all multiply opportunity by giving more low-income, first-generation college students a hand up so they can be bridges. These student officers of the Collective Success Network are already serving as bridges who give their families and communities a hand up. In closing, I would like to share my compassion meditation wishes with you. May you all be happy. May you all be healthy. May you all have calm clarity. Here's how to learn more, connect, and collaborate with me to bring calm clarity or the Collective Success Network to your university, your organization, or to your city. The book is also available outside if you want it. Thank you.
And our fourth speaker is Terry Spigner with Engine.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Terry Spigner. I'm the president and CEO of Engine. I want to talk to you a little bit about my journey today, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with each and every one of you. My journey is that of a son, a father, a husband, an entrepreneur, community leader, and a servant. I serve my community, I serve my family, I serve my staff, and I serve humbly those who I come in contact with. My journey started in 1967 as a big-eyed, bushy-tailed baby boy to a 16-year-old single mother, the oldest of 3 children. She was my first hero. She gave me the fortitude, the understanding that nothing was going to be given to me. I had to work for it. There was a lot of success in our life, knocking down challenges, because if you didn't knock down a challenge, you were going to get knocked down. So coming out of segregated Alabama in 1967, growing up and facing my different challenges in life, I found success. My success being one of the youngest senior vice presidents in one of the largest advertising agencies in the world. My success soon turned to failure, getting laid off from that job after serving 3 presidents. The 3rd president did not want me as part of his administration, and having to find out what is it that I'm going to do next in my life. I joined an IT firm as one of the as a senior vice president, small firm in the 2002. 2006, I owned the firm. 2007, the economy goes south. One of the worst recessions in the history of this country. So now I have to sit back, figure out what do we do now. Some people said the recession lasted from 2007 to 2009. In reality for our company, it went through to 2011. Because IT, the way businesses buy it, changed forever. It was a new normal. The bank that we've been with, a multinational bank, would not extend us the credit that we needed in order to sustain the downfall, so we had to go to a minority-owned bank, Industrial Bank of Washington, who collaborated with MMG, Stan Tucker, if you're in here, thank you, to give us the money that we needed in order to reinvent ourselves. And that was a great success, knocking down that Goliath of having access to capital in order to create the opportunity that we needed, not only for my family, for my community, and for my employees. That started in 2014, gave us the ability to refocus on how it is that we wanted to do business. How were we going to be the best technology company in America, in North America, not the best black one, but the best. We became ISO certified and CMMI certified one of less than 2% of the companies in North America that have those certifications simultaneously. We were named one of the top 500 managed service provider IT companies in North America in 2017. Also number 26 of the 150 fastest growing IT companies in North America. This year we became one of the 250 tech elite IT companies in North America. Also one of the top 100 minority business enterprises in the entire metropolitan DC region from Baltimore down to Washington DC and Virginia. These are things and opportunities that we were able to realize because someone took a chance to invest in our company. Also, from 2014 to this year, our company's revenue has grown 375%, which gives us the ability to reinvest in communities, in our community. At the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C., my wife and my name is on as the donor board. We donated up to this year over 300 pairs of boots to homeless veterans. We've created a paid mentorship program. Right now we've mentored over 20 students. Over half of them have become full-time employees, most of them from HBCUs. So that's what access to capital has done for me in my life. It's allowed us to be that servant, to be that leader, to create opportunity, while making sure that our staff and our company has a philosophy of tremendous, outstanding customer service, phenomenal customer satisfaction. Our philosophy and our motto is we want every one of our customers to feel like they're the only customer we have. I'm not satisfied until I get that comment from our customers, unsolicited. We are one of the most highly rated and certified companies because opportunity has allowed us to do that. There's not too many companies in North America that maintains as many certifications as we have with industry, which allows us to provide phenomenal support to our customers, but understanding that customer service is the most important thing to us. Our journey isn't over. My journey isn't over. My journey is just an opportunity for us to be able to do more, to do better, and to set a legacy of service to our community, to our employees, to use the money that we've made to make sure that our employees have opportunities. We don't have the money that Hopkins has to give the $18,000, but we do give each one of our employees $2,000 towards the down payment to their home. That's what we do to make sure that we can pass the opportunities that's been given to me on to the next generation. Thank you very much and have a great day.
The policies you pursue and the programs you deploy matter. Full stop. The opportunities that result from the work you do change lives. Full stop. You've heard today from these 4 compelling speakers, and I hope we all walk out of this room realizing that our collective challenge is to fuel these opportunities in a way that not only evens the playing field, but also tackles the systemic and structural obstacles that impede the pursuit and the realization of these opportunities. I think the best way that we could possibly wrap up this session right now is to ask these 4 folks to stand and to give them a loud round of applause. I just want to sit and hear more stories because they're so compelling and it makes a difference. So talk to each other, tell your stories to each other, because that's how we're going to know which opportunities we can really invest in as we go through this conference. We are going to walk into a break at this point. In 15 minutes at 2:15, concurrent sessions will take place. You don't want to miss the concurrent sessions, and you don't want to miss the opportunity to be back in this room at 4:15 where Emily Badger from the New York Times will be offering just a dynamic plenary session for us to be a part of. So we'll see you back in this room at 4:15 and in concurrent sessions in 15 minutes.